Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Françoise Claire. I'm director of classical and jazz at Le Bureau Export in Paris. And I'm very pleased to welcome you all for this panel today. In the context of the series we launched in April called From Home Export Days, and we have this dedicated series of panels dedicated to classical music trends. And today we are going to explore the Germany, Switzerland, and Austrian markets with another high-level panelists who are going to talk to you about these markets and obviously in this very specifically difficult context. Eric Denut, next to me, is going to lead the panel, and so I leave you the stage, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks, François, for that invitation. Warm welcome to all our panelists, to our audience. We are well aware in a kind of a very historical situation we are all lying on, and we are all the more grateful to all four of you of being with us from Berlin, from Vienna, from Basel, in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. May I introduce very, very short words each of you. Let's start with Sonja Siebenauer, quite a very famous artist, agent based in Berlin for a long time, representing one of the major soloists, string quartets, musicians on this planet. We'll be very, very keen at having your opinion from the very first hand on what is happening now in Germany and what will be your perspectives in the coming months and years. Peter Paul Keinrath in Vienna, head of Klangforum, one of the leading modern music ensembles, not to be introduced anymore. Peter Paul is also the artistic director of a very famous piano competition in North Italy and has been also artistic director of many festivals and important venues. Thanks so much for being with us. Peter Paul has today important concert tonight, so we'll be leaving us in 1 hour. So we'll make the most out of it. Yeah, Peter Paul. We go back to Berlin with Ole Becker from the Pierre Boulez Saal, general manager of that quite young venue, which is not only a venue, which is also, as we know, a kind of music house from a very new kind. It will be very important for us to understand and know from your words what is your plans, also in the educational context of your house, and how you have coped till now with the new environment, and how you intend to manage and lead in the next future. And then we go back south to the Rhine River and to Basel, close to Germany and to France, but on Swiss territory with Hans-Georg Hoffmann. So we all know yesterday was quite important day for Swiss orchestras and Swiss music life, and we'll be also very eager at hearing from you, dear Hans-Georg, what is happening and how is it, why is the mood in Switzerland, and also how you see the very next future. So let me please start with first question to Sonja. I would be. We all know that the audience, which I'm greeting, is a professional one, and we all be very, very impatient to know exactly what has been said last Wednesday, how the music world is coping now with what is happening in Germany.
Well, very simply, the announcement yesterday was far beyond what we had feared. All concerts are canceled at least until the end of November. The question will be, will there be some stream concert or not? This is all not clear for the moment. I don't think we have a lockdown as strict as in France, but at this point everything is cancelled, which is a drama and a double drama, because the first time the lockdown came and it was a whole of a surprise. At this time, an enormous amount of work has been done from all the sides of the organizers of the halls to cope with the pandemic, to make it a safe place to be, to organize the concert such that nobody could be in danger. And this is an enormous blow in the face of everybody. It is also an enormous blow in the face of the freelance artists, who are the first to suffer about it now, because most of them are not registered in any kind of country. The people of the country in Germany have been told that they would get money for the month. But what about the artists? So this has all to be assessed. And to make it a very short thing, we are at the very beginning of a new phase, and we don't know how this will develop now.
What have been, how did you manage with your team the last month? Have you had the feeling you are entering into that new context, new environment, with a kind of new business as usual organization? And will it be now changing that organization? Or would you say, well, knowing now we have to struggle with that virus in the next, let's say, 12, 18 months, you have found in some way a kind of new managerial and organizational type which is fitting to the new times? How would you describe it?
We have had a lot of discussions with colleagues about this. We are meeting in Zoom since at the beginning of the pandemic to try to share the big problems that we have, to try to reassess the idea of what is an agency, what is the real role of an agency, for what do we get money. We have tried to discuss also with the organizers whether they can see it from the side that they also need us, and therefore would carry part of the commission. And we failed, because the very clear say of the organizers is, you belong to the artist, and if you don't belong to the artist only anymore, it will change the relationship with us, and it doesn't work. So they put the organizers put us as the responsibility of the artists. The artists get no money. You can't ask money from someone who gets no money. So the dilemma remains whether we will have a new scheme for the future. It is too early to say, because we don't know what effectively will be possible to earn, not from the artist and not from us. But we are working on it. I took from the bank, I was in the bank just 2 days ago, and there was a paper there saying that the agent, the house agents, those who sell houses, that now the commission will be shared between the buyer and the seller. So I took it with me as an example. Maybe this could be a new way. The discussions are interesting. When is the money due for an agent? Is the money due when the concert has taken place, or is the money due when the contract has been made? No good answer, because where no money goes, you can't speak about money.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty... Sorry, go on.
You asked how we survived. We have survived. Obviously, we are still there. We have not given notice to any of our team. They are still working, partly, but still working. And they are still all on it. The atmosphere in our team is great.
Okay.
I think we are all pulling on the same thread, and we want to survive, and we want to make this work. So we organize talks in the air, trying to figure out, okay, is there anything we can talk about today about new ideas? We are more busy with the daily rescheduling, discussing how to solve the contract that we had, etc. This is the reality.
Great. So that you are pointing out a very important and in some way thrilling point about the externalities these educated soloists are bringing into our industry and how to make revenue out of it, even if they are not playing. Maybe I should give the word to Peter Paul Kleinrath, who he's dealing not only with the artist externalities or 20 plus brilliant soloists from Frankfurt, but also the whole ecosystem with composers and all the creative system there is around a new music ensemble. So first, Peter Paul, first question would be, in Austria, how does it look like? Because we are also very patient to know what is happening in certain smaller countries like Austria, and we know also Netherlands or Sweden. Each of them have chosen different paths from the big 4 or 5 European countries. So that would be really interesting. And maybe immediately the second question is, in the last 6 months, have you also built a kind of new model with probably much less own resources, selling concerts, but also capacity to maintain the highest or the excellency of the ensemble's quality and the excellency of your close relationships to that creative ecosystem I was mentioning. So maybe let's start with the real-time situation in Austria today.
So first question, how about Austria today? Today, 29th of October, we are opening our own concert cycle in the Church of St. Stephen. So hopefully we can get it. And we are all waiting for the announcement of the government tonight. And let's see what they are going to decide for the concert life. For the moment, we are still allowed to have 250 people in the hall. So we set up our own concert cycle with 2 time windows, 2 concerts, same program, played twice. So we can serve our subscribers fully at the Wiener Konzerthaus. And what regards the last 6 months, I think I'm here new from 1st of January. And of course, I was expecting a bit of different starting point for this new position that I am here. But I have to say it was quite interesting for us, and I'm positive, still positive, despite a huge psychological pressure on us, because I saw this ensemble, this amazing ensemble with these 23 musicians, how loyalty and innovative power brought us to new models. So we worked a lot on new program strategies to develop new programs that we can also go beyond the new music scene, that I think it's really important, beside the crisis that we are going through it, for an ensemble as Klangform Wien, it's very important to reach a wider and a bigger audience, and not only inside our own scene. And I think we made some important steps. And when the crisis will be over, Klangform Wien will be a different one. And for the moment, we tried to shift a lot of energy to recording projects. And happily enough, we were successful on this. So we found also private funders to support us in this, to finance it. We are trying to collaborate with international foundations from Korea, Japan to Poland. And so we are, for the moment, still busy. No? And during the lockdown, of course, it was maybe the most difficult period, because what are we doing? Every soloist is his home. And some of them asked me also, should we also stream, as a lot of musicians streaming from their living rooms and so. And I think it was pretty clear that we are not going this way, because we are an ensemble. We are an ensemble for a live stage, for a live audience. And what we decided to have a clear voice on in a different way. So we collaborated with Adagio, for example, one of the most important streaming platforms in the classical music. And we were present there with over 20 interviews with one of the most important composers around the world, made by our own musicians. So this gave us a visibility inside a very traditional, not very traditional, but mostly linked to a traditional understanding of what classical music is. And we opened also some new windows, and we got a lot of interesting feedback from a possible, potentially new audience in the future. And what is the situation from an economic aspect point of view? A lot of people are speaking already about economic crisis. I don't think that we are yet there. The problem is not, from my understanding, not so much that we are already in an economic crisis, but that the money is still there. So I don't know, all the organizations got their year contribution, their year funding. The problem is how this money can reach the single musicians, especially the freelance musicians. No? And there is a huge difference between the institutionalized project as Klangforum Wien is and the individual freelancer. And what we are trying, and partly also successfully in the concert that we were able to play over summer, it's to communicate that it's not anymore that you are paid only in the moment when you are playing a concert on stage afterwards. As any other professional, when you get in an agreement, there is already a liability of the promoter who invites you. So because we are sharing the same interest, we want to present the musicians and the programs on stage. So what we are trying now, and as I said, partly successfully, 30% in the moment when we enter in the agreement, 40% when the rehearsals already happened, and the last 30% when you are really on stage. And this is sharing also in this specific period the risk of doing something together. Okay. And in Austria, I have to say also our main funders is the City of Vienna and the Republic of Austria. They allowed us now to extend the financial statement to elaborate it in a 2 years perspective, means a lot of flexibility, because we really hope to regain something of the loss of this year in the next second half year of 21. And then also very important, a structural fund. We were allowed to apply for a structural fund, and we successfully applied, and this allows us to run still on a very efficient way the office. So for the moment, I see from the content point of view some very interesting perspectives, because even before the pandemic crisis, I strongly believed that an ensemble like this, I call them always the Vienna Philharmonic of new music, no? And the Republic of Austria needs a Vienna Philharmonic of new music, needs to reach new audiences. And this is pushing us towards these new audiences. And after the crisis, I'm strongly sure, I strongly believe in this, that audiences will look for more new contents than before.
I understand. Very short postscriptum to your statement. Thanks so much for that. That solidarity principle of 30, 40, 30, are you also applying it when you are buying a workforce, like freelancers participating to a Klangforum concert? Or are you also doing that now? So,
of course, now we are going through a crisis, and we try to realize projects where we don't need such many guests. No, but for example, tonight, and I'm very happy about this, we are opening with Et Expecto by Messiaen. So it's 44 musicians, so another 20 are coming in as a guest. And this is a very good opportunity to include them in our project and to be able to pay them some money. No, this is we feel this responsibility, and right after the lockdown, we really tried to analyze every single case of already signed conductors or a singer, and to reach an agreement. And not so much now with the Klangform, but you mentioned Busoni Piano Competition Bolzano, where we tried, when we are shifting a concert to the next season, already to make a down payment, because this is a financial commitment and not only nice words. Okay, let's speak next year, because one of the biggest challenges for me now is when we are entering in a dialogue with promoters, nobody is even willing to speak about future, because everybody is so busy with the present time. So it's really difficult. I don't know the experience of Sonia Simenauer, but to speak about season 22-23, nobody wants to.
Okay, I think Olivier Messiaen wouldn't have dreamed of a better context of performing at Expecto Resurrectione Mortuorum than the prison context. Ole, we have been speaking a lot about promoters. We do talk with your teams about the future. I can personally testimony about it. But maybe, and you will be the only promoter on that roundtable. You have a huge responsibility on your shoulders. So we heard from Sonia about the Berlin situation in the German context. If you want to add, please, anything on this regarding locations, do it. And the second question would be, of course, the organizational new business as usual in your organization, not only with concerts buying or promoting, but also the whole educational activities which are so groundbreaking in your institution. If you can give us a glimpse of what has happened since last spring at Buleza.
Sure. I mean, it's been interesting times. It's been super frustrating, and it's been really hard to see how many of the people we work closely with are having a really difficult time. Directly here, the team here, we've been in a fantastic, fortunate situation of having ongoing funding. So we've been able to continue to plan and work and reschedule and try to find solutions. But of course, the artists, a lot of the people who we work with for catering or for checking tickets or for cleaning, and I mean, a lot of the external companies who provide us with services have had to close down or send people home or in Kurzzeit. Luckily, there's a relatively good system in Germany where that can rescue companies, but this also means that these people, which is part of what we do for artists and for the audiences, they're suffering. In some cases, they also lose key people and have to sort of start over. We've just been setting up and getting into a normality, or a certain level of normality. And now it looks like we have to close down on Monday again. I know that is really hard for a lot of the people that we work with, including agencies and artists, but also a lot of other people. So that certainly is something that we feel very strongly, and is also very sad, very important, very much something where we are considering what we can do. But I feel that in some ways, the main responsibility that I think I have and the team here is to work for the future. I mean, it's to work for securing possibilities for artists and for audiences in the future. And on that level, it has also been a very interesting time, because when there's a crisis, when you're forced to do everything differently, it means that we all have to start and to stop and ask, why are we doing what we're doing, and could we do it differently? Clearly, Pierre Boulez Salle, when we started in March 2017, we had a very clear focus on organizing exciting projects in the hall for audiences and for artists in the Pierre Boulez Salle. But the month we've been through now has been a lot about digital possibilities, and it's become very clear to me that when we now plan for the future, it's going to be normal for us to think not just what exactly is it we want to do in the hall, but to think what exactly is it we find that is interesting content, stuff, music, stuff we want to do with artists we want to work with, and what are the different platforms that are best for sharing that sort of excitement or getting people excited about the stuff that we want to get them excited about. And we are working on developing models for online. I think it's super important to think of online as really a platform with a lot of possibilities, but not necessarily the platform to just try to do what we do in the hall. You know, you can film and record audio, video, a concert, you can stream it live, you can record it and show it later, you can make it available on some sort of archive online. But I think this is really, really important. I think what I want to look for the future is active content, something where it's not digital entertainment. I think we have partners in the digital world, in the media world, who are very good at doing that, from the big television stations to record labels who've been recording music for many years. So I've been thinking a lot about and talking with my team about what is it that we should do and can do. And I think the cultural scene, I mean, if you think about what it is we really offer people, it's not just a beautiful music experience, it's the whole thing. You dress up, you go somewhere, maybe with friends or with people, you get here, you have a drink, you go into the concert, it's a beautiful space, it has a feng shui, it's like going into a sacred space, like a lovely church or something. So the whole thing is an experience. And you are doing that with other people, you have this social feeling of being with other people, an experience with other people. And then you have an interval and there's something social, you might meet people or you're with people. Even if you're not talking to people, you have the feeling of being together with people. And this is really not the same even if it's very beautifully filmed. If you're sitting at home in front of your computer or television, even if it's a super hi-fi system and a super television, it's different. It's not a concert. It's an experience at home where you're consuming some sort of digital content. And I think there are a lot of possibilities. And I think what I find is that I want to try to get inspired by other fields of stuff happening online. And just to give 2 examples, I think Peloton is a very brilliant initiative. It's a sort of fitness bike, spinning bike. They sell a bike. It's a very good quality bike. It's super expensive. It has a big screen, and you cycle on it in your own home. But there's a huge screen in front of you, and they have a lot of live content from spinning classes with now famous spinning teachers. And you're spinning with people all over the world. So there might be thousands of people spinning at the same time, and the coach who can see how many people are in what places, and he can even see, or she can see, how fast they're cycling. And it's a community. It's you have the feeling of being with other people, experiencing something, doing something. You have a personal challenge, maybe personal goals. There's a schedule there. Your favorite person is doing this every night at 6, so you have to be there at 6 o'clock if you want to do it. I'm just saying this because I think this is an example of active content. And it's an example of something online that gives you something that has a community kind of quality to it. Another example is the gaming industry, and a platform like this Discord, which is basically a platform that started out as a platform for gamers to talk to each other. So they might be playing the same game, and then they're talking to each other while playing the game. Or what I've seen with different people who are gaming, or when I'm visiting friends and seeing what their kids are doing, they might be playing different games with their friends are doing something else, but they're on Discord talking to each other. So they're kind of hanging out together, and it's really social. And I think that is one of the reasons why people go to concerts, is because it's a social experience. It's something when you come home after that, you feel good. You were with other people, you experienced hopefully something really fantastic. Also on top of it, something that you can then talk about. But I think that sort of, I think it's super exciting to look for ways that we can also do something where we are, as Veranstalter or impresario, where we are not just being a producer of audio video, but we are being a producer of something social, or something where you meet other people, or something where you interact, or where you learn, or where you participate, or where you set yourself a personal goal. Things where it's active. So, I mean, this lockdown and the current situation where we have been lucky to also get some additional funding for developing digital initiatives, it's also a very exciting opportunity to really try to see what is it that could also be relevant for a veranstalter to do veranstalten in the digital sphere as a promoter. You're promoting an idea, or you're promoting something that is not just a musical performance, but if we get that right, I think it has a huge potential. And I think it's also super important to get that right, so that we've developed models where people are willing to pay for it. I mean, people pay €2,500 euros for this Peloton bike, and 39 euros a month for subscription for getting access to this content. You know, if it's right, people are willing to pay for stuff like this. So what happened when there was lockdown, and this is also what we did, we started putting content on our website. We did a sort of curated series of audio-video stuff that we called Intermission, and it was on the website of the Pierre Boulez Saal. And we got a lot of reactions to it and feedback, and it was quite positive. But at the end of the day, we simply put a lot of content on the web for free, and people were watching it. But that's not it's not a model that can work forever. You know, it's paying money for something is something people are happy to do if it's something they want, if there's an emotional connection, if it feels right for them. And paying money for something is also showing respect for something. It makes another kind of connection. I think it can be something very positive. But I mean, we've been drowning in free content online, and this is kind of dangerous. But on the other hand, I think it's been so extreme that it's so obvious that this is not the solution long term.
I understand. I will have many other questions. I keep them for later on. Also, if these kind of perspectives do apply to the educational activities you have, but let's keep that for a little bit later. We go to very I would say that's real industry, a symphonic orchestra, the Hans-Georg, and we all know how it's a big ship. So I have many questions, but first, maybe your very spontaneous reaction to what is happening in Switzerland, if you can give us a little bit more details first, and the second one would also be a little bit more retrospective than prospective. We do that a little bit later in the discussion. So these last 6 months, you have been very active. I've seen beautiful TV-Sendungen made professionally. So maybe give us also some insights into what happened in the last 6-7 months in Basel.
Yes, thank you. We are still shocked about the last day, and also the newest informations from today. Yesterday, the Swiss government has spoken about 50 people for concerts. Today, in the new documents, stands from 15. So it's really a roller coaster ride at the moment, because until yesterday it was possible to organize in Basel concerts with an audience of 1,000 people. We had complete sold out concerts full of people. Our colleagues from my team, they made a very hard job to talk every day 24 hours with the public to explain how safe is the situation in the concert hall, and now we have on the end the 15 people. It's really hard, and at the moment really impossible to talk about plans. We have this afternoon a first meeting to think about the next weeks, but it's a challenge, and I'm really curious also about the ideas of all. But for us, you have spoken, Eric, about the old steamboat, or we have to find the balance between the old audience and we have 1,500 people, and to stay in contact with these people, this is really important. And I'm not sure after the lockdown in spring if the way in the digital world is really for this audience the best way. I think for the young audience, I'm complete with you. This is really a big chance to develop new formats also in the digital world. And the other thing is also for our musicians, in spring, we have developed different concert formats, from the at home until the Salon Picasso with chamber formations. It was really a good time for our orchestra, because when you are a member of a symphonic orchestra, then you have not many possibilities to play chamber music. And so it was really good for the self-confidence and confidence. And the first reactions of a lot of musicians were, oh, now we will repeat the Salon Picasso too. So they are ready to play chamber music, but we have to find really a good way also to include our audience, our abonnements people for the next weeks. And this is really a big challenge. And the other thing is we have written some open letters in this night, and also 2 days ago to the government. I think it's really important for the next days to connect all the musicians, and because we have not really a lobby, and I think for the next days we have to find a way, and I think also to organize demonstrations, to go to the street and to say what is the situation now, because it's not a kind of entertainment or Freizeit. It's really hard work, and my feeling is the politician people, they don't understand this.
I completely understand. As we were introducing ourselves just a couple of minutes before joining our audience, which I'm greeting again. Thanks so much for being with us. With Sonia, Sonia put that question forward: how do we use now that free time we will have? And we can only see now in the first 35 minutes of our discussion, there is a lot of things to be done, keeping in touch with the audience, which is huge, millions of people, music lovers all throughout Europe, and of course in the heart of Europe, in German-speaking countries. Also finding a new way to talk to new audiences, as you're doing in Vienna, or in Berlin, and every one of us is doing, of course. But also lobbying, and maybe also improvising a little bit, or experiencing or prototyping what can be done. So may I ask, first of you who wants to answer, please, that question. How do you think we should best use that free time? What is the, I would say, the least opportunity cost? What is the first thing we should do? And maybe second question, if we start having a European-wide division of labor, you know, like Adam Smith's division of labor, how should we share it between promoters like all artist agents like Sonia, and the, you know, the key production factors, the orchestras, the opera houses, and the free ensembles? So what is the best every of you could do to, in the end, have the biggest, how can I say that, market power in some way, so that we come out of that crisis bigger, stronger, healthier, better than we entered into it? So I don't know who wants to, Sonia, please, first.
I would like to pick up right away on what Hans was saying, because this is the most the most bitter part of the whole crisis, is to realize that the music world, the cultural world, is not important. This is something that is hurting so much, because we were so used to be the glamour, the shining arts, etc. And as a matter of fact, in Germany at least, the art is one of the biggest economical branch, and yet we are lost into nothing. Yesterday was a very, very big demonstration in Berlin called Alarmstufe Rot, a big demonstration that was so loud because all the trucks of all these people, rock, pop, classical, actors, gastronomy, etc., it didn't even come into the news. If the Verdi union makes a fuss about getting more money for whichever branch, which is legitimate, it is in the news. This demonstration in the middle of Berlin that made that Berlin could not drive the whole day did not even make it in the news. this is saying a lot about not only what the political people say. It's not always the fault of the political people. It is just how are we being seen? What is the lobby that we could even be building? That's what we've been working on for 6 months. And I'm afraid if we don't manage to make it understood to the outside that we are not part of a system, but that we are alive, that we are the soul, then we can also do something else than any of what we have said
So
now.
do we have also that democratic problem in Vienna and or in Switzerland? Peter.
It's very difficult for me to answer on this question. So, yeah, for me personally and for the ensemble, the priority actually is really to reach the future. We don't have really answers on the present times. And I agree with Sonja, of course, Mrs. Simenauer. The real danger is that our voice is not be heard, no? And that after months and months speaking about all the airlines and all the other so-called substantial sectors of the society are more important than ours, because then politicians and maybe even a bigger part of the society simply will be used to the idea that this was a kind of an ornament and not substantial. And this is maybe the only real challenge for the present times, how to outline our voice in a better way. I don't have suggestions or advices for the politicians how to deal with this crisis. I'm not an expert. I really don't have answers, and my own responsibility is to get together with these 23 people, musicians, and together with the office. So let's speak about 40 people to reach the next June 21. And it's a kind of an individual crisis management. And of course, not everybody can get projects for recording. Not everybody has this kind of funding where we are paid for develop new projects for the future. No, this is a very individual way how to approach the present times. The real challenge is which kind of role we will play afterwards. And these are maybe, and also looking to Basel, no, symphonic orchestra. It's important for the present, or was important for the present times. Sorry to say this, I'm not anymore so sure about the important role of a symphonic orchestra, let's say not on your level, because you are a first-class level, but all these mid-sized orchestras of smaller cities, no? Very important for the local cultural life. I don't know if they have all the right answers on the question, is this still in the right proportionality between investment of public money and the output? And I'm a bit afraid if we are all together able to find the right answers. I'm less afraid for an ensemble like Klangforum, or Ensemble Intercontemporain, or Ensemble Modern, but we are very few. So I have more questions than answers. Sorry, Eric.
No, I understand. But maybe put some, without being too pedantic, some figures on what you just said. If I'm rightly informed, there are in Germany, not Switzerland, Austria, just Germany, around 125 symphonic orchestras, the professional ones. We have in France 25, and we have in the UK around 15. Okay, so that gives you already an answer. I mean, some quite comparable economies, not exactly the same kind of economies, but let's say if we add UK plus France, we don't reach even a third of the only German professional symphonic orchestra. And it's even worse in the lyric houses. You have 82, 83 lyric houses in Germany. You have only 5 national operas in France with the right label, plus 3 with some kind of national. If you add the town council governed ones, you have around 20. And I wouldn't want to talk about the British figures because I don't want to be indelicate with our British friends. So that's what is going on now. So Hans-Georg, do you maybe want to say a word about the Schicksal, the destiny of smaller orchestras in a little bit more in the north, maybe in Württemberg or Bavaria or Hessen?
It's not easy because I worked before for Kammer Orchester Basel or freelance orchestra, and this is for me really the challenge for the next time. Or we have in Basel 3 fantastic orchestras: La Cetra, Kammer Orchestra, and the Symphony Orchestra, and we have with the Musikakademie a high quality education school, and they produce a lot of high quality musicians. And though the question for the future is what is going on now? Or I think we have also to think as a steamboat. When I look into the history, the founding of our orchestra was in 1876, and then we had 50 musicians in this orchestra, and then in the 20th century we had 2 orchestras, symphony orchestra, and then the fusion, and now we come back to the roots. Or we will see. As I hope we can go forward with 85 or 90 musicians to play also the Mahler symphonies. This is or the big symphonies, Shostakovich. This is important also for an identity with a city like Basel, with Paul Sacher, and also with connections. So I think very important is to be very close to our audience. I think this is really for me it's more important to go in the digital world. We have to find possibilities to bring the music also in these difficult times to these people. This is our basic, and this was also in the beginning of music, that you had with the society, the city society, and we have now this wonderful Stadtcasino, and we felt that was the first concert. All concerts sold out, so there is really a big interest from the city to come, not only in the concerts, also to meet in this new building, and we have to find also this spirit and to bring it in the next days. But I don't know how, but it must be the first way.
I understand. Maybe back to Ole. We know that architecture can be very inspirational. I mean, we had it everywhere in Europe, and London, they're trying now to have it too, and we know about that. So the Pierre Boulez is also an architectural case study by one of the greatest architects in our time. Did it play a real role in the last 3 years? Will it keep playing a role in the future? And maybe also about that kind of deficit of acceptance in democratic societies of our sophisticated practice, let's put it like that. But what would you say with your experience with the Barenboim Academy, Ole?
Well, it absolutely plays a huge role. I mean, the architecture here, it's very simple, but it's extremely beautiful, and it just works. You come into this hall and it feels kind of magic. And we get that from anyone who comes there for the first time, and usually people come again, and from artists. It's what I find really interesting now is that what the hall does to the audience and to what we do. The hall inspires what we do, clearly. I mean, Frank Gehry's masterpiece here has really been an important part of us becoming what we are now as a concert hall. And what we are now looking at is how can we take that inspiration and take it online or digital or do other things to live this. I mean, what the hall does is you come in there, you experience something together. It's the artist and the audience together. It's like one community. It's not a stage and audience. It's one feeling of togetherness. And how can we live that in other formats, in other ways of doing something, in other ways of getting people engaged? And I think you asked before the question, what should we do now when we have more time? What we are going to do is we're going to organize a number of workshops, and we're going to invite a lot of different stakeholders for these workshops. This is something I've done before, and I find that it really works. We just did one a month ago with Thomas Hampson, and John Kieser was kind of running it, a sort of design thinking workshop. And we had audiences We had students, we had staff, a couple of audience. I mean, we tried to really invite people with different perspective, and then to work in a structured way to develop solutions concretely. We were talking about Schubert Lied, and we have a format which is curated by Thomas Hampson, where we present Schubert Lied. It's a week in January, and the idea was, what can we develop in addition to this that would make sense, or that people would be excited about, or that could look at the essence of what is this. And it was very inspiring. What came out of it was sort of different sort of prototypes of stuff we might do in the future. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that we do exactly those prototypes, but learning from that, learning about what is it that people get excited about, what is it that people would be potentially really engaging with and be willing to pay for, and be willing, but mainly be excited about, to have some emotional connection with, and I mean, in that case, we talked about what is the essence of Schubertiade, the idea of artists or people meeting and listening to Lied that has just been created, and poetry that's just been created, and maybe some poets meeting. And one of these workshop groups came up with an idea of creating some sort of format on Instagram, working with Insta poets and getting people to write poetry, and then spontaneously turning that into Lied and to song, so that people can be part of it and see how a Lied is something that is at some point created. It's not something magic on a pedestal. It has become that for certain repertoire, but actually at some point, and at the point of when Schubert created it, it wasn't. It was new. It was something that was invented there, and he was very curious about working with different poets. Some of them now seen as more important, some of them as less, but clearly a huge curiosity. So, I mean, certainly what we want to do now is to try to use this time to have time to do more of that type thing, where we really try to engage with different stakeholders, different people who are part of this whole thing that we try to bring together, audiences, people who have maybe not engaged so much with classical music before, and artists and students and staff, and then to do workshops on that. And I find that very meaningful to do that. It's sometimes quite exhausting because you sort of question everything, but usually something comes out of it that is really helpful, and that we have. I mean, we've gone through a process like that for developing our foyer, which has to be used by a lot of different people at different times for different purposes, and we use these workshop findings to try to make a better foyer, develop better furniture and a different sort of layout of the foyer and different ways of structuring it. So like that kind of workshop, and then a second round of workshops where it was really experts then using the findings to then design a professional solution. But I mean, that's certainly something where I think suddenly having time is also in a way suddenly opening possibilities to do stuff that one may have wanted to do for a while, but we are all so busy when we are in production and when things are happening every night, or when it's kind of full on schedule. So I think if there suddenly is time, maybe it's a great opportunity to take a step back and think, what is it that we could do now to develop a better future, which and part of it might be to really be interested in understanding our audiences. It doesn't mean that we have to give them exactly what they say they want, but we might find out that there are certain things that they really connect with, and then you can use that to get them connected with something they didn't know that they could get excited about. I mean, that to sort of trigger that curiosity. So I think that would be a good way of using the time, I think.
Great. Maybe just Sonia, one minute, because I know Peter Paul has got to leave us in 6 minutes. Maybe you were mentioning all the workshops and with stakeholders, and Peter talked about crisis management. I was just wondering, you have a team of, I would say, normal citizens, Viennese citizens at Klangforum, the production team, the administrative team, the technical team. How do they react to what is happening in the last 7 months? Do you see them also stuck to our practice and being more motivated than ever to the, I would say, the purpose of what we are doing? Or have you also had to make some crisis management there, and how did you did you do it?
The psychological pressure is big, indeed. But happily enough, the team is still very motivated. Let's see what the announcement tonight will be by the Austrian government. But until now, we had quite a lot of concert to play. Now we were able, and this was also very important during the first lockdown, we started immediately to organize ourselves for this recording projects that we can hopefully activate in the moment when the concert life disappears temporarily. So the crisis management, and this creates a lot of work. So this takes busy the people inside the production team also. In the moment when cancellation comes, we would like to be able to activate these recording projects. So this is the strategy, a very simple one, but I think from the content point of view, interesting one for the next few months. That's all.
Okay, great. Sonia, please, you wanted.
Quickly and very spontaneously to what Ole was saying, just saying that I feel very, very jealous of these possibilities to use the time in such a creative way, to be able to call up workshops to really find out what the public is missing, etc. We deal with a completely different side of it. We deal with the actual loss for the artists of what they had, of a certain security. Nobody in this world would have ever thought that this kind of crisis could happen. I mean, let's face it, I've been facing a lot of times, oh, my company is not going to survive this and that and this and that. I had no idea whether a company can be surviving or not. Because the complete stop of this world, this was completely out of mind. Even during the wars, there were concerts. But that there is no concert whatsoever is something that we have to realize it can happen. So I'm very happy to hear about all these creative sides, about also this, the realization that there is the public, the live public that wants to come. There is the possibility to open up to them, to the digital world in a completely different way. And there are these ensembles who are dual, because you work about, you speak about doing the concerts, and if no concerts, then something else. So this is great. Still, we have to help the artists go through this time and keep their spirits up. They have also been enjoying the first moment of take the plug out and have time, and have at last time to look at some scores, etc. But they still need to leave.
Can you tell us what you have heard about the support by the federal and or maybe more local authorities, Sonia, on cultural enterprises and businesses? Are there some measures soon to be announced or already announced to help bridge that time?
There are measures announced. They have been announced together with the lockdown yesterday. The gesture of the government is to say nobody should starve, and this lockdown of 4 weeks that is scheduled now should be paid with 75% of what we would have gotten last year in the same month. This sounds always very good. My experience over the past months is that there have been a lot of programs to support the artists, to support the companies, etc. And when you come down to write the papers to apply for it, you realize after a while that you don't fit the criteria. That's what happened to the artists. That's what happens to us. We have not been able to gather any money. Only the last month for this little, what they called Überbrückungshilfe, which is to pay a part of the rent and part of the telephone. So you really are put back to yourself. I know many artists who have been supported by their parents. Some of them have gone back to their parents because they can't afford a rent. So this is a disaster. And some of them have gotten help at the beginning of the crisis and had to pay back because the government said you don't have cost, so you don't get money. Of course they have cost, the cost of living every day, but that you can't put on the paper. So that's basically the situation. I don't want to paint it to black, because obviously the will is there to help. Obviously there is a lot of money to be taken. And obviously we need the music. But we're not there to say how it works.
Okay. The last of this part. Peter, you have to unmute your microphone, please. Yeah, great.
Yeah. One question to Mrs. Immenauer, because the contemporary music world is not so much into the world of agencies, no? Because there the contact between composer and festival and promoter is more direct. I don't want to be black, as you said also, and negative, but if the classical music world is becoming more digitalized, and we are producing all the contents and all the channels to communicate with the new audience, as Ola said, don't you see this danger on the horizon that agencies, as we knew them from the past, will have a very difficult future to approach after the crisis, because context became more direct even in the more classical one of Mr. Hoffman, of this world, that what is then the role? Because also we ourselves, we need to try to redefine our role of a contemporary music ensemble. So my question would be, sorry to put a question, but I'm very curious about this. How do you see the future agency after the pandemic crisis?
Sanja, you have to switch your microphone on.
But where?
Great.
Yeah, you're on now.
This is a very good question, and it's a question we are asking ourselves already since months, because obviously the world is changing and the agencies have to change too. The fact is, the artist will still need someone to go along with them. There is a need for help. We don't know what the world outside, what the concert world will be. We see also some organization like the Boulez working very much on projects, asking the artist also direct, not to avoid the agencies, but the way they work is a very good example of how the world is changing, and the touring type is not existing anymore, or is disappearing. So where is the position of an agency? How to still make the link between organizations and artists. For the moment, the organizations can survive on having the artists that have been already promoted. But how do these organizations come to new artists in the next artist generation if the whole system is changing? I have no good answer. But yes, we must hear about being agents.
I think it's a very important point there, because there's a huge danger that we develop into a situation where no one is thinking long-term development of artists, where no one is really thinking, how can I, over the next 15 years, make this artist around it successful artist that has an audience. And I would say some agencies are even not really thinking so much that way. They try to just take the artists that are already successful, and that very hard work of being a real impresario that really thinks long term is under threat, because it's a very, very long term investment. And then there's the danger that the artist changes agency, because it might seem as if it's a good idea. I mean, I think that's for me a worry, because I mean, there has to be a continuous development of long-term artist development, and there's a danger of sort of very short-term, very young artists that are kind of burned very quickly.
Yeah. Well, this is not new. This is not Corona. This has been.
Has nothing to do with Corona, actually.
I do think that there is one thing that we all. Please, you have to go. Go ahead.
Microphone.
A microphone?
Yeah, great.
Now we hear you.
Yes.
Sorry, no, I don't want to interrupt you. Please continue. I have a comment then. What you said about touring concept.
Well, what I wanted to say is that there has been a trend that is now getting clearer and clearer of houses that are curating their concerts, that are curating their program, and taking artists to fit in their program. When I began in this business, the houses took artists who had programs, and it was more a free stage for the artist. I'm not saying what is right, what is wrong, but the better the houses are curated, the least it is important that the artist has a big name, because the program comes in the front. So this is good on the one hand, because it's speaking about the content. This is bad on the other hand, because how can an artist be seen if he is not the main thing in the program? These are the two parts. I don't. It's just very. It's not precise enough, but that's the danger that has been growing over the past years.
Peter, you wanted to intervene?
No, only when Mrs. Zimmerner mentioned rightly that the touring concept disappeared. No, this is a fact. But maybe I'm too positive. But I foresee minimum a potential of a renaissance of touring concept. Because actually, as I look to the crisis, I see a lot of movements trying to connect the health crisis with the ecological aspects of being in this kind of crazy mobility. No? And the touring concept, it's not only from an artistic point of view very interesting, because we are not anymore used that the pianist Sokolov is doing this a bit, still, that he retires for 4 or 3 months and then he's playing the same program around Europe. So this on and off that every artist plays at every moment over the year in any city, the day before, the day after. And if this is one of the consequences out of this crisis, that also promoters, also people like Olabat, you are already doing this, inviting an ensemble to be in residence, or that it's not anymore a problem that is in the same country, the same ensemble, in our case, is playing several times a program, is from an ecological point, I think, a very important answer to all these questions related to this. So touring, especially in the contemporary music scene, it's not existing. It's really not there. And I would like to try to work on that we are really able again to take a train and to be on tour with our ensemble for 2 weeks by train through Europe. I think it can be an interesting perspective. Maybe I'm too positive.
No, so thanks. I just we are definitely in a very special time, so I have to. Hans-Georg Hoffmann has left us, as you have seen. He apologized very much. He had a kind of Krisensitzung, so a kind of crisis session with his musician, just starting 10 minutes ago. So he had obviously to leave. So we wish him all good luck, and also to his musicians and his audiences in Basel, and we will warmly thank him on our behalf, common behalf, in a couple of minutes. So you have already been talking about my next and last point, which is globalization, what has become of our global industry. Maybe, okay, you have already said a lot of things, and Peter Paul, thanks for your insight.
I have to leave also.
We know, so you are so thanks so much again. And so we kept it as a trio, the agent versus the promoter.
No versus.
Not at all. Versus is a kind of cooperative, symbol. Seriously, so we all know there are many things we should be changing, and no one can look into the crystal ball and say, okay, in 22, 23, let's say, over next season, that's how it will look like. But we probably know there won't be that many US American orchestras touring throughout Europe as they did, and or vice versa, etc., etc. But maybe let's take it from a much more global perspective. How, both of you, do you see that with building a strong brand awareness or personality awareness in the major metropolis of this planet, which is pretty much what we all have done for many years and very successfully, without destroying that planet? So we all know this kind of unique experience of having Isabelle Faust, let's take her because she's working with you, Sonia, in Berg's concert is something exceptional, is unique. I mean, you need having Isabelle Faust. You don't need having that local violin player, which is performing it probably brilliantly, but that's not Isabelle's sound. So how can we manage having it in the, let's say, 25, 30 big cities in our world, which are very good connected per rail, car, airplane, etc., which allows a big part of humanity to experience Isabelle Faust during her lifetime in Berg or something else, with sustainability? So I have absolutely no answer to that question, but it keeps being one of the most important answers. And of course, we could talk about Daniel Barenboim or the next Daniel Barenboims of our industry. So maybe in the last 20, 15 minutes, let's try to design first answers or experiences we should try to help or to, in a cooperative way, to define all together, which may become reality in 3-5 seasons. Who wants to start? Sonia again.
No, Ole, because I've been talking already. Ole said, Ole is on.
I don't know. I think in changing times, it's always good to look at it as an opportunity, and I mean, I find that it's exciting to think about, are there new kinds of partnerships that are meaningful? Can we partner with different organizations on certain projects? I mean, if there's going to be less touring for environmental reasons or pandemic reasons or whatever reason, I mean, might that mean that there's time to do stuff that we didn't think about before? I mean, and really seeing a lot of colleague organizations as partners rather than, it's silly to look at it like competitors, because I think we should all be partners trying to fight for the opposite of stupidity, to actually fight for people engaging with also complexity or stuff that is maybe not so easy to understand. I see that as the opposite of populism, to actually work with other institutions to do stuff. I think that's really that can open lots of ideas. I find. I mean, not just a super practical thing. We're doing a project with Josquin, celebrating the 500-year anniversary with Tally Scholars in August, doing all of the masses in 4 days, 8 concerts in 4 days. But we want to use that as a sort of platform for then exploring sort of deep dive in different things. And one idea we have is to work with different museums and maybe make an audio guide so that audiences can go to different museums and look at different paintings while getting some information and listening to some music about this. And this might mean that we can engage with an audience in London going to National Gallery, or they can go to Rijksmuseum, or they can go to Gemälde Gallery in here. Or if they can't go anywhere because of Corona, they can go online and have a sort of guided audio tour of the Rijksmuseum because they have a really fantastic online presence. So you can actually kind of visit the museum. And if you have a connection with the sort of musical project, I mean, I think this can be a way that we can engage with people who will then actually in the end travel to Berlin to hear this mad 4-day extravaganza, because we've connected with them going through some sort of other channel. And I mean, the potential is endless, because it might mean that some sort of partnership comes up that makes something possible that otherwise wouldn't be. And I mean, actually, I think it's relevant to mention Sonja and we are in talks about different projects where we're really, as partners, cooking up something that could be really quite special. And I think maybe that's also part of the model of working with agencies in the future, that we really are partners developing maybe more complex things, and then there has to be financial models for how all that work done by an agency can also be financed. So you know, maybe the old model of a certain percentage of an artist fee has to be supplemented by a number of other partnership models where the payment comes in different ways. It's kind of maybe quite obvious that I mean, and your company has been doing that for a number of years, I think, because you are sort of also doing advising or consultancy work,
Yeah.
but it's not the core turnover. It's not the core business.
Well,
not
it is
yet,
the
so-
core business because working for the artists we work for obliges us to make this kind of work with the organizers. Beyond that, I've been, of course, busy with the string quartet as a specialty. But what I appreciate is the role of laboratory that the Boulez is taking over, which I think is giving back to Frank Gehry a little bit of what he has been putting it into this whole, and it's great. We have to deal on such different levels of, on the one hand, these kind of very special boutique things, as much as we are a boutique agency, but we still have to keep the global structure that needs a lot of money and that embraces a lot of people on the much lower level of understanding and of much more direct. And on that, I think that the one thing that we need to be aware of is, where are we with the education of the children?
Yeah.
Because if we don't have children yearning for music and concerts and whichever form the concert will have, if the children are not aware of what this is, then we can close up the future. And what are the possibilities that we have in that? I mean, we have the whole America example where every artist going for a concert to America has to make a reach out. Has it brought new public in the halls? I don't know. But I think that we need to look at Asia, because they have built a public. And the question
And a very
is,
young public.
a very young and very respectful and very quiet and very demanding public. So what have they done right? And what should we be asking for by our governments to be doing in order for our public to grow?
But isn't the difference that they did not have this tradition that Europe has? So they had to create something from scratch in this field.
But we too now, because we
Yeah.
we are just about to be beginning from scratch again. So that's maybe
Yeah.
the momentum we have. Also figuring out that we are worth nothing in the mind of people. Is that not the scratch we need?
Yeah.
To be raising and to say, wait a second, we've not been serving this for so many centuries to just be wiped out within a few months.
Well, maybe there's a danger that it has in some years also been kind of comfortable, because there's a tradition, and it was, if you look at a music city like Vienna, I mean, everything sold out all the time because it's just a tradition. People go to concerts and to the opera. So when that's changing, I mean, then suddenly those organizations who've been used to that situation, of course, that's a shock, and it needs a different approach, or needs a different kind of way of thinking about it, I guess, to start with. I mean,
But this is the challenge, I think. How do we get together to define and promote what it is?
but there, I think it really is a lot about understanding where are people in their lives, what matters to them, how do they function, what do they react to? I mean, this morning we had babies in the hall, but it's not a concert for babies; it's a concert for the grown-ups who are in parental leave time. So we put the concert at 10 o'clock in the morning. Because the idea is Monday to Friday. So yesterday we had a concert with Trio con Brio, a beautiful concert, and the next morning today I invited them to do this for Elternzeit-Konzert, we call it. And it was interesting because clearly you have a very clear target group here. But my idea was to do a concert for the grown-ups, not for the babies. So the musical program is totally serious. It's from the night before, it's just shorter. And when we started that last year, all we did to find an audience was to advertise and collaborate with Himbeer, which is a magazine for young parents who have just had their first child. So there's a lot of advertising for expensive equipment for babies, but also information about what you can do when you're on Elternzeit, including these concerts. And all we had to do was to advertise in Himbeer, and it was sold out. I mean, we decided to have not big numbers of people, because the most we've had is 60 babies. I mean, they do make some good sound and climb around and stuff. But it's been really interesting because it clearly brought a lot of people to the hall who have not been here before, and it brought a lot of quite young professionals who want to explore the world and who are open-minded, but they don't necessarily come with a long tradition of going to concerts and operas. But some of them clearly have money. We had a few coming with extremely expensive Kinderwagen and in limousines even. I mean, that was not the norm. There was only one. But it clearly connected with some people because we kind of did something that really connected with their situation. I mean, when you are in Elternzeit, you have time on a Tuesday morning to go to a concert. When you are working, you don't have time to go to a concert. So it sort of defined a need or something that we could connect with, and then it worked. And it cost us very little in terms of marketing, communication budget. I mean, it's not something we're making money out of it, but because the artists do it as an extra thing, we pay them a bit of extra money. But it's real audience development. It brings some people in here who haven't been here before, and then they're like, oh, this is nice, this Frank Gehry of a hall. Maybe I'll come to something else. That's at least what I'm hoping. So, at this morning, we then asked if they are interested, they should please let us know if they want to participate in some of these workshops, because these are people that it's really interesting to talk to, because they might come with a very fresh mindset of looking at what it is we are doing or what we could be doing. Like, is this for me? Could I kind of connect with this? So I think many possibilities are out there if you are just willing to see where people are and what is relevant for them.
But what about our artists?
Well, they Trio con Brio were invited for a normal concert yesterday evening, getting a normal fee, and they got an additional fee for doing a 1 hour
but that's fine.
Of the program
that's
there.
Great.
So
That's great.
Them a bit more.
That's not the point. But the point is, how do the artists see their position in this world? How do they want to create a life around the music? Are they part of these development discussions to reach out for the new public, etc.? This is what I mean. I'm not discussing the fact that they get an extra something for doing an extra little job. This is all good, but I worry about them being in a vacuum, because the system has imploded. And they should be part of rebuilding a system that also works for them, to be able to be who they are. They don't need to be people to play 150 concerts a year. Nobody needs that. And it's okay if they play 60 concerts a year. Maybe they rehearse more. Maybe they are interested in other things. That's all fine. But they need the 60 to be able to survive. And that's my dilemma. How to build that, how to reach that.
Great. Maybe we should stop with that question mark. I must say a really very personal remark. As we were with Françoise Claire casting this roundtable discussion, we were already enjoying and praying that you would, all of you, saying yes. And as you were, we were already knowing we would have a great time. We didn't know it would happen the day after in some way. And it's such dramatic historical times, but it was way beyond expectations. Our expectations were very high already. So thank you, deep from our hearts. Thanks to our audience. We had some nice comments, so thanks for this kind of comments. I think we have already discussed a very broad spectrum. I had many more questions. Also in Scandinavia, Ole, we're not forgetting Scandinavia. We have this connections there. Maybe some other day. So thanks so much to both of you. Thanks to Peter Powell. Thanks to Hans Georg. Thanks to our audience. And so we have been live. I may make some very personal advertising. You can see from behind us. We are live from Orléans, a small city south of Paris, where there is an international piano competition still going on, also with Ensemble Intercontemporain and great artists. So we have been very proud of having that show from Orléans. So thanks so much, and back to
thank you for organizing it.
Thank you for giving us a chance.
Yeah, well, it's our big pleasure, and thank you for these very inspiring and sociological and also almost philosophical questions about the future and what we have to do for keeping our musical life as vivid as it must be. So this panel will remain available on the Bureau Export YouTube channel and Facebook page for replay, so you can watch it again if you want to. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you very much, Eric. There will be also a publication about the German, Switzerland, and Austrian markets available that will be shared for having information about the figures about what these markets represent. So that's all I can say for today. Good luck to everyone. Bon courage, and we'll be in touch again soon. Thank you.
Au revoir.
Bye-bye.
Bye.